I know you guys are just absolutely on the edge of your seats right now, just waiting to hear desperately what I have to say about this new Drake single, the 2C Slide, so here are my thoughts on it. Let's see here. Where are we gonna... Actually... Yeah, yeah, right, okay. There we go. That's more like it. Okay, cool. Hello everybody, welcome back to the music on the channel. I hope you all are having a wonderful day so far, and today we're going to be talking about the one, the only, Thundercat and his new project, It Is What It Is. Vocalist, songwriter, killer bassist, and man who has the falsetto of 1,000 doves flying in the wind. Yes, that very same Thundercat has finally released his 4th studio album, which honestly is pretty crazy considering the fact that he started releasing music at the beginning of the 2010s. But in the beginning of the 2010s, I had no idea who Thundercat was. I mean, around this time, it was blowing my mind that Drake, Nicki Minaj, and Lil Wayne were all signed to the same label. But after a 4-year hiatus in 2017, he finally released his album Drunk, which was my first introduction into his music and the first body of work of his that I listened to in full. And I loved it. I absolutely loved this album. His fusion of funk and jazz and soul, it was wonderful. Along with his falsetto and the whole idea of being drunk off emotions and just being drowned by them, I loved this album. It was one of my favorite from that year. Previously, I had seen his name attached to Pimp a Butterfly and his work with Flying Lotus, but I had never really identified who he was up until this project. I was completely hooked on his music, went back and listened to his other albums, was impressed even then, but still, Drunk was my favorite album, and I was extremely excited to see where he would go next. My favorite aspect about Thundercat is the fact that he's a very serious musician, like he has very serious instrumentals and his singing, like overall the structure of his music, it is very much legitimate music, but the comedy and entertainment he brings to his music is almost unmatched. He has a very keen sense of humor that adds a lot of likability to his music, more than just the average bassist or average vocalist.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna start putting used condoms in my cases because I want the TSA to I want to amp it up. I want the TSA to feel like I'm watching them.
So while I did have high hopes for It Is What It Is coming right off of Drunk, I was also just expecting at least for Thundercat to deliver on his personality and his charisma that he brings whenever he makes a project. So with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, It Is What It Is a good album? And yeah, it's a pretty good album, but I can say I'm a little disappointed by Thundercat standards. Like I just mentioned, all I'm really hoping for Thundercat to do is have some cool instrumentals, have a good sense of humor on it, and deliver some good vocals on top of that, and some pretty solid songwriting. And I think he delivered on all of those fronts, but my problem with this project is he didn't exactly exceed as much as he did really on Drunk. And I'm not saying he had to do the same thing as Drunk, but I saw him really pushing outside of his comfort zone, making a cohesive narrative throughout Drunk, whereas on It Is What It Is, it's kind of all over the place, if not just not trying the hardest at sometimes. It's kind of odd in that way. Because Thundercat is such a personality, and he brings so much personality to his music, so listening to this project, I was disappointed with the fact that he really wasn't being that expressive as he usually is. Like, for instance, the first 4 tracks in this project I was entertained by, but I just wasn't overwhelmed with joy or happiness listening to them. I was just kind of like, okay, these are cool songs, but I'm not really getting much out of them. Considering the talent he brings on for the song Black Qualls with Steve Lacy and Childish Gambino, I was actually pretty let down by how that song turned out. By no means is that song bad, but it's just very much what I expected that song to sound like, and I wasn't that impressed by it. I'm not saying every song has to sound like this, but if you compare the first 3 songs after the intro to Houseway, it's just a night and day difference, because Houseway it's extremely lively with these schizophrenic synths and electric keyboard. But most importantly, I hear that song and I'm like, yeah, oh, this is definitely a Thundercat song, whereas the first couple songs I listen to them and I'm just like, this could have really been on anybody's project, and I have that problem with a few other tracks as well, such as Fair Chance. When I listen to some of these songs in the project, they just sound like they could be expanded on in different ways as opposed to just being the standard versions that they turned out to be. I have no problem with Thundercat goofing off, I mean that's literally what his personality is, but my problem is when he's goofing off and there's no cohesive song that comes out of it, or at least an interesting song at that. But that's not to say this album doesn't have highlights. I mean, Dragon Ball Durag was one of my favorite songs, and even in the context of the album, it still is one of my favorite songs on the project. I mean, how could you not like that infectious, do you like me in my durag? On top of lines like, I might be covered in cat hair, but I still smell good. It's just like great. Like, it's the perfect balance between humor and actual song structure. Overseas is a pretty funny track too that I really liked as a song, even though it was rather short, especially with that Zach Fox outro. Talking about all about that sweet lovin' on a plane, you know, and getting that Mile High Club type stuff. And Unrequited Love with its thick bass line, yeah, it's right up there with Careless Whisper for, you know, songs like that. And I actually want to talk about the song It Is What It Is real quick, because I didn't know this project was titled after the last lines Mac had on the song What's the Use before Thundercat had his vocal breakdown. That's only something that I found out because I was doing research for this project, and I can say that it does help guide the theme of this project a little bit more. Because as the full line goes, it states it is what it is till it ain't, and you could actually make that as the reason why this album is the way it sounds, because it's not exactly sticking to one theme or sticking to one idea, and I think the purpose of that is you want to express yourself as much as possible and do as many things you want with your life until, you no longer can, until the day you pass away. You want to be able to put out the art that you want to put out and not be pigeonholed by anybody else. Initially, that's what I thought while I was listening to this album. Like, the reason it sounds this way is because the theme of it is what it is. Like, this music sounds the way it sounds because it just is what it is. But that just added an extra layer to it, not knowing that that was actually a line in one of Mac Miller's songs in Swimming. And if anything, kind of just reaffirmed that idea. But that can't be the excuse for this project being fairly sloppy. Like, just because you have this idea, like Joyner's ADHD, where you have all these different ideas, and your excuse is that the concept of the album is it's supposed to be all over the place, it doesn't necessarily excuse the fact that some of these songs are a little underwhelming, or just okay, and up to Thundercat standards, not really so. But what I will say is this album works as like a cloudy headspace dream throughout the mind of Thundercat. I can say what really does help pull this album together is the fact that it's cohesively made sonically, so you feel like this whole album is just one trip through the mind of Thundercat. And through, this does sound like a Thundercat project. It's not like he's trying to pull from different styles and try and be more mainstream. This is definitely a true Thundercat project. It just leaves room to do more. And I've always kind of felt that way about Thundercat projects. Like, he does good work, but I always feel like he has a classic inside of him. He can make a beautiful body of work. I feel like he can. It's just he's kind of holding back for some reason. Like, he wants to goof off more than he wants to make an actual serious album. Which is why I think I like Drunk so much, because he actually had a serious tone throughout the whole album, and he had an idea weaving in and out of it. Even though, he was still kind of goofing off and making funny songs, I still feel like that album gave me a lot more conceptually than these albums do, especially It Is What It Is, despite the fact that, there's the whole Mac passing away tying into it. With all that being said, my top 5 songs from the project, I would have to go with Houseway, Dragon Ball Do-Rag, Unrequited Love, and It Is What It Is. And let's go with Overseas. I think I forgot to say that. Yeah, that's 5. And I feel like I'm going to catch a lot of shit for this, but keep in mind that I don't think any of these projects are bad. I think they're all good. It's just some I think are better than others. And with that being said, his 4th worst album I think now is What It Is. It just didn't hit me as hard, even though it is still quality music. Then I'm going to go with The Golden Age of the Apocalypse, then Apocalypse, and then Drunk. And I know a lot of people would put The Golden Age over the actual Apocalypse album, but I like the instrumentation of Apocalypse more. So if you want to talk about that, we can talk about that later. But those are my album rankings for Thundercat. And yeah, I think that ties everything up. As always, thank you guys so much for watching all the way into the end of the video. I hope you all are staying safe out there. We're getting near the end of this quarantine where we're going to make it, don't worry, just stay strong out there. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, you can @ me and we can discuss this project there. Also, check out my channel for other reviews and other discussion videos. And that is all I got for you guys. I will see you in the next one, and stay safe out there.